Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Unnext News Radio podcast, your news source for all things unexplained. And now, here's your host for the Unnext News podcast, Margie K.
Good evening and welcome everyone to Unnext News. I'm your host, Margie K, and we're here on the Unnext Network. We've got a few things coming up that you may be interested in. On the 18th at 2 o'clock Central, you don't want to miss this. It's a paranormal tea party, and I've invited several ladies of the paranormal to have a frank and casual discussion about their own events and things that they have investigated. So sign up for that at unexnetwork.com, and that is free of charge. And then I have a dowsing workshop coming up early March 11th. It is going to cover my new book called The Master Dowser's Chart Book. And I will explain what dowsing is and how to do it. And you need that book in order to join the class. And that information's on the website. Also, starting in March 11th, for 4 Saturdays in a row, I will be teaching a comprehensive workshop on remote viewing. So if this is something that you have ever wanted to do and want to learn more about and increase your psi abilities, that is a workshop to attend, and you'll need this book to go with that. And that is available PDF download on the Unnext Network website. My guest this evening is someone I've known for a number of years. He's a friend of mine, and he's just amazing. Ray Hernandez was a PhD candidate at the University of California at Berkeley, where he was the recipient of a National Science Foundation PhD fellowship. He is currently the director of the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, or CCRI, an academic research institute comprised of more than 25 PhD academics, medical doctors, and researchers, whose mission is to explore the relationship between consciousness research and the phenomenology of paranormal experiences, what CCRI calls the Contact Modalities. In 2018, Ray and a team of retired PhD academics published an 820-page book titled Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence, which, by the way, I can highly recommend, which was the world's first and only comprehensive worldwide academic statistical research study on UFO contact experiencers. Over 4,300 individuals participated from over 125 countries. Ray has also published in several peer-reviewed academic journals, including the Journal of the International Academy of Consciousness and the Journal of the Society for Scientific Exploration. Ray has recently published 5 new books, which are 4-volume book series with 800 pages for each volume, in case you need a little light reading, titled A Greater Reality, The New Paradigm of Nonlocal Consciousness, the Paranormal and the Contact Modalities. His most recent book is titled The Mind of God, a Spiritual Virtual Reality Model of Consciousness and the Contact Modalities. Welcome to the program, Ray.
Thank you, Margie, for that wonderful introduction, and also for the audience members. I want them to know that Margie, in my opinion, is part of the small select few individuals that really understand where I'm coming from in terms of that all of the contact modalities are interrelated. They have to be studied as one phenomenon. And also the topic of that we introduced in the Mind of God is that that consciousness is fundamental. And the key to be able to understand all of these complexities is really to be able to begin to understand what is consciousness, what is the nature of our reality. And so thank you for that wonderful introduction, Margie. You know, I have high respect for you and your work.
Thank you so much, Ray. Coming from you, that is an honor. I've known from the beginning, from your beginning, when you woke up, so to speak, and we had some phone conversations about that, and we even printed an article in Unnext News magazine about your experiences. I'm wondering if we shouldn't start with that, with how you got involved in this, and talk about your first experience, if you would.
Sure. I'll be very brief on that end, but basically, I had gone to Cornell University for a master's. I went to University of California, Berkeley for a PhD. I then went on and became an attorney. That's what I was doing for many, many years. And then everyone that was interested in the topics of your show, I thought all of you were all kooks. I had zero understanding, zero knowledge of these things, and I really didn't care. And then the very first experience was an experience in our living room where my wife and I encountered an energy being that my wife had been praying all night because our dog became totally paralyzed the night before. And so this energy being appeared. The dog disappeared in front of me. My wife disappeared, and I was put to sleep. And then an hour later, when I woke up, the dog was running around fully healed. And my wife was saying in Spanish, hallelujah, hallelujah. The angels cured her. The angels cured her. And then a month and a half later, my wife was praying outside at night. She prays to the Virgin Mary of Mexico. And lo and behold, a big, gigantic UFO appeared to her. And then she repeated that numerous times. And especially when she spent the whole month in Mexico, that was witnessed by all of her family members, her sister, her nieces, two ladies that were dentists, and another lady was an attorney in Mexico. So they all saw this. My wife was praying, and in 15 minutes, boom, a big, gigantic UFO would appear. And it was very up close. And so then I decided to do it, to call down a UFO. This is 6 months after that initial experience. Within 15 minutes, a huge, gigantic object appeared. And also, that object, that was when I first discovered that these were holographic projections. Because when my friends came, because I was going to meet them outside, it was he, his wife, and their 17-year-old daughter. By then, my daughter had joined us because I got a telepathic message in my daughter's voice that she wanted to see a UFO. But I never talked to my daughter about these things, okay? But yet, this intelligence projected that message into me. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was my daughter was calling me. But no, it was a telepathic message. And then when my friends came, they said, Ray, what is that? I said, you know damn well what it is. I said, no. And they said, no, it can't be. So they began to explain away. So after like a minute, I started laughing, right? And I relayed to that intelligence, okay? I said, you better come up with some better stuff than this because my friends don't believe you. All of a sudden, the image that we were watching, which was comprised of several hundred oblong streaks of light, very long. It was like 600 meters back, 100 meters up. It was a huge object, but it was not physical. It was basically light configurations. And then inside was all this white energy. When I said, you better come up with some better stuff than this because my friends don't believe you, all of a sudden, what we were all watching totally disappeared. And now it was replaced by huge orbs that were very low to the ground, like the Volkswagen orbs. They were all blinking on and off, on and off, on and off, like about, I would say like 50 of them. And then they would take turns powering up big to like when the moon gets real big, you know, and then back small again. And then another one in another area would do the same thing, power up. So then my friends stopped because they knew this was not man-made, you know. And so later on, I realized, I said, my goodness, this intelligence has the ability to come down after 15 minutes of me calling them, okay? Secondly, they're able to get my daughter's history of messages, communications with her, uploaded that, re-scrambled it like a computer, and then put a sentence to it. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing a message, Daddy, you and Mommy have seen UFOs. Next time you guys see a UFO, you call me, Daddy, don't forget, okay? Even though I never talked to my daughter about these things. And then I said, you better come up with some better stuff than this because my friends don't believe you. All of a sudden, that was wiped away. It was deleted, and a new image was projected. Later on, I realized, and talking to other experiencers, they've had somewhat similar experiences. One is Dr. Joseph Burks. Let me tell you very briefly. Dr. Joseph Burks is a retired medical doctor. I would say he's in his late 70s. He's been calling down UFOs since the early 1970s. He started with Stephen Greer. He was his Los Angeles director. After like 6 years or so, he broke off with Greer for a lot of reasons, which we don't have to go into detail here. But Joe still remained in contact and communication with UFO intelligence. And so one time, it was very early on, it was his third experience. Because before he would see these little stars in the sky. This time he saw like a World War I plane, wooden plane, bright red, okay, with little bitty wings, little tiny wings that he knew it couldn't fly. Didn't have a propeller, didn't have a pilot. It was very low to the ground, so he could see everything, you know. It was about 100 feet up. And so he says, this can't be real. This thing can't fly. This is not a real plane, you know. And then it lasted for a certain period of time. And then, you know, boom, it went away very slowly, like a helicopter. So he knew that what he was watching was a projection, okay, of not a real plane. It was a projection that he was seeing, okay? And a lot of people have had experiences of projections that all of a sudden change to something different, or they're watching they're watching a certain UFO and all of a sudden something totally different, okay? And so what I realized a long time ago was that we're dealing with an intelligence that is not what materialist ufology thinks it is, okay? Another hammer on the nail was in our research study, and again, I want folks to know that I can give you half of our book, the most important chapters, I would say, which are the academic chapters of our analyzing our research data. Just send me an email. The email is info@agreaterreality.com. And I will send you half of our book, Beyond UFOs, and our new book, The Mind of God, and various chapters from this larger 4-volume book titled A Greater Reality. So send me an email, info@agreaterreality.com, and I'll send you all that material for free, okay? Now, our research study that we did between 2013 and 2018, okay? That was, one of the co-founders was Dr. Edgar Mitchell, okay? Apollo 14 astronaut, sixth man to walk on the moon. The other co-founder was Dr. Rudy Shields, Harvard professor of astrophysics, okay, for over 45 years, and a very dear friend of the late Dr. John Mack. And the other one is Mary Rodwell from Australia, very well-known UFO researcher of people who have had contact experiences. And myself, we were the 4 co-founders. We then brought in people like Kathleen Martin, Barbara Lamb, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, Denise Stoner, who worked very closely with Kathleen Martin. And then we had like 10 PhD academics, okay? Half of them were experiencers themselves, okay? And then we all got together and we say, how do we study for the first time people that have had UFO contact experiences? So we developed 3 enormous surveys. 2 of them were quantitative. The other one was qualitative, which were written responses. You had to write out responses to 70 questions. And so we administered that survey for 3.5 years. And we took 9 months to write that book, Beyond UFOs, and we also published a couple of peer-reviewed academic articles, which you had mentioned before. And what we found out was that our research findings pretty much contradict what are circulating in materialist ufology, okay? Tons of data from thousands of people. And this was not, you know, people like David Jacobs that has hypnotically regressed 200 people at most in his 35 years of doing that work, or Bud Hopkins. That's it. They only work with 200 people. And again, it's people that they selected, because if anyone had a positive experience, they didn't want to work with them. They threw them away. I've met tons of people who went with Jacobs and Hopkins, and they said, maybe you need to work with Leo Sprinkle, you know, maybe you need to work with Barbara Lamb. Why? Because their experiences were not negative. So, but yet these are the people that set the whole stage for the abduction phenomenon, you know. And
that's unfortunate, because if you have a bias going into it as a scientist or a researcher or a psychologist helping someone, I don't think you should have your own bias involved in that at all.
Yeah, but that's we discussed that heavily among the group, and myself and a couple of the academics said, if you have a certain perspective, throw that out the door, because we're going to have questions about the positive stuff, the neutral stuff, and the negative stuff. So we asked tons of questions. One research finding that we found out, let me jump a little bit ahead, was that initially 37% viewed their experiences as highly negative. 37%. But yet, most of these people had 20 or more contact experiences. 40%, as a matter of fact, had 20 or more. Between 10 to 20 was an additional 20%. So we had 60% of these people had 10 or more contact experiences. We also had 2 PhD statisticians, okay, in our group. And they did a study where they looked at how you answered positive, negative, and neutral. We had over 25 questions about positive, negative, and neutral, and how many experiences you had. So what they were able to determine was the more experiences you had, your perception of the experience changed over time. Okay, so if you had 20 experiences, it's like Whitley Strieber now, love and light, love and light. Kathleen Martin, love and light, love and light. But yet Whitley Strieber and Kathleen Martin set the agenda with the alien abduction stuff that they did many, many years ago. But you look at Kathleen Martin, she just published a book titled From Alien Abduction to Spiritual Transformation. Okay. And Whitley Strieber, he doesn't talk about abductions anymore. No. And in one of his interviews, he says that he prays to these beings, to this UFO intelligence, because it gave him spirituality and allowed him to communicate with his deceased wife. Okay. So to him, it's like, it's angelic. Okay. The perspective. And that's what we received from the thousands of people that took our surveys. Now, a couple of the survey findings. One survey finding is, as I said before, we had 25 questions to determine this aspect of whether it was positive, negative, and neutral. Okay. And what we found out was that when they took the survey many, many years later, only 4% said it was highly negative. That's it. We found out that 1/3 of the people had an abduction. The other 2/3, they had seen UFOs, like in my case. We've had contact with non-human intelligence, like in my case, but I never had an abduction. Okay. So 2/3 of the people said the same thing. But what we found out also was the people that had an abduction, okay, 70% of these people call themselves conscious contactees, not abductees. Out of the another 20% that call themselves abductees, but it said I was an abductee, but of a milder kind, a gentler kind, and it was only like, as I said before, only 4% of the overall people that took our surveys viewed it as highly negative. And we even asked for different types of physical beings that people were seeing. What was the percentage of negativity? For the number one type of being was the energy being, but yet materialist ufology doesn't talk about that. Okay. Number 2 type of being was the human-looking being. Materialist ufology doesn't talk about that. Okay. Number 3 came the grays. Okay. For the short grays, only 10.5% viewed their experiences as negative. That's it. The vast majority, 60%, said it was neutral. Okay. You know how many people had experiences with the short grays? 1,400 people. Okay. Huge numbers. Okay. And let me go into the reptilians, because reptilians have this horrible reputation, right? 660 people had experiences with reptilians. Okay. The survey, it had the highest negativity rate. 22% said it was negative. So we wanted to find out why everybody else, all the other groups, had, less than 10%, negativity rate. Okay. But all of a sudden, reptilians was 22%. So what we did is we looked at the people that wrote out written responses to their experiences. Okay. And what we found out for the reptilian people, the people who had contact with reptilians, was not that the reptilian, raped them, ate their children, that Barack Obama's a reptilian. No. What we found out that people were scared to death when they encountered the reptilian. Most of the reptilian experiences were very close, like within a few feet of the person. Rarely was a reptilian, like 20 feet away or something. That's like, boom, he's right in your face, Like Barbara Lamb, she had an experience with a reptilian. And it was like, boom, right in front of her. While she was
that would be scary.
Vacuuming the floor. Exactly. You know, you have to think of here is 7 to 8 foot tall being. Okay. Muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger, weighs like 500 or 600 pounds, the body of a crocodile with little beady eyes, and he's a foot away from you looking down at you. You know, you're going to be defecating in your pants. Okay. But the people said that that was the main reason why they put negativity, you know, negative. Not that they did horrible things to them. It was just the scariness of it. Now, one of them, let me go over the research findings very, very quickly. Mind you, there's 820 pages, so I'm flying away. Number one, that these experiences, while initially 37% viewed them as negative experiences, many, many years later, only 4% viewed them as mainly negative. Okay, that was number one. Number two, these experiences, while people did physically see a UFO, people did physically see a non-human intelligence. Like 95% of their experiences are categorized as paranormal experiences. Okay. For example, 80% had out-of-body experiences. 80%, 8 out of 10 people. People that were brought to another multidimensional reality, 50%. Okay. 50% were brought to another reality. That happened to me. Okay. While I was driving my car. Okay. Seeing orbs. 60% of the people saw orbs, not in a photo or a video. They physically saw an orb going through a wall, going through windows, doors, and things of that sort. Mm-hmm. People that have seen deceased people, it was 2/3, 66% saw a deceased person. Okay. That all of a sudden just faded away, you know, like in Star Trek. Beat me up, Scotty, you know. And then the people that actually communicated with that deceased person was 2/3 of those. So these are huge numbers. We're talking about, you know, hundreds of people, if not thousands of people in some of these categories. You name the paranormal experience, it was more than 30% of the people had some type of category. The largest category was out-of-body experiences. Okay, and then so we documented that in our book, and what we concluded was that these experiences can be categorized as consciousness-based experiences. Okay, why? Because all of these experiences, and Jacques Vallée said it 45 years ago. Alan Hynek said it 45 years ago, that this phenomenon involves a manipulation of space-time. Very key, very, very important. Okay, and when something is able to manipulate space-time, you could then go to the hypothesis that we're dealing with something that's multidimensional. Okay, and let's look at the other contact modalities. Okay, near-death experiences. Does that involve a manipulation of space-time? By definition, yes. Okay, out-of-body experiences. Is that a manipulation of space-time? Well, when your consciousness is not in your material reality anymore, your consciousness in some other earthly plane where you're still interacting with your material reality, but you're in another plane. I call it the fifth dimension of consciousness. And then the people that do astral travel experiences, those people break out of that fifth dimension and they're going to these higher planes. And they're interacting with almost an infinite number of non-human intelligence and an infinite realities, a reality like an NDE where you can manifest things. Okay. So that's astral travel experiences. People that see a dead person, you know, you bury your Aunt Matilda 2 days ago, and then Aunt Matilda appears in your living room in her favorite Sunday dress. Okay. So then you say to yourself, is Aunt Matilda real or not real? Is Aunt Matilda physical or not physical? Well, the answer is both. Okay. Because we're still seeing everything, all of our reality, with our physical senses. We have 5 senses. Okay. So that's how we perceive our reality, via the 5 senses. But there's another part of our reality, which is the consciousness aspect of who we really are. When you do remote viewing, when you do astral travel, your consciousness leaves, okay? And you're able to see, okay? Clairaudience, clairvoyance, okay? You have your senses outside of your body, okay?
Ray, we have to take a break here, a short break, and then we'll get right back. This is Margie Kay. We'll see you in just a minute. Join us for a paranormal tea party, February 18th, 2023 at 2 p.m. Central Time. Ladies of the Paranormal will discuss their investigations and best cases, even their own encounters. Register for this free event on Zoom at www.unxnetwork.com. We'll see you there. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. If you've ever wanted to learn how to remote view, take the remote viewing workshop. Learn how to view energy fields and even inside the human body and on a microscopic level as well. View past scenes or events or locations anywhere, even faraway places. We all have the same exact physiology, so we can all remote view. Visit unxnetwork.com for more information. And we're back on Margie K with NX News, and we are talking with Ray Hernandez this evening. And I know, Ray, we could sit here and speak for 8 hours and not be bored.
Most definitely.
You have a lot to say. You've had a lot of experiences, and I think that it's appropriate to say, and this is from your list, but I totally agree. Near-death experiences, out-of-body, UFOs, UAPs, ghost spirits, remote viewing, hallucinogenic experiences, channeling, and other psi and paranormal experiences are leading theoretical hypotheses relating to the nature of our multidimensional reality, which includes non-local consciousness. I, as a layperson and experiencer and investigator, agree 100% with that. And I think these, some people, I call them the left brainers, because they only can use their left brain and they don't use any part of their right brain. Don't get this. What do you think we can do to get through to them?
Oh my goodness, Margie, you asked $1 million question here. You mainstream materialist ufology will not touch me with a 10-foot pole. Okay, I've never been invited to any of the major UFO conferences to speak, but yet our 820-page book is the only long-term, comprehensive, worldwide statistical academic research study on UFO contact experiencers, and we're the only game in town, pretty much. But yet everyone ignores us. That's why nobody knows about what we did. But let me tell you how we got there and what led me to what I'm doing now. Okay. once we had this organization that Edgar Mitchell and Dr. Rudy Shield were the co-directors of it with myself, they knew tons of people, especially people in parapsychology. Charles Tart, Russell Targ, Hal Puthoff, Dean Radin. These were people that would just speed dial, and they called them, and they did. They hooked me up with all of these people. And also John Klimo had been studying the paranormal for over 45 years. And his basic research has been on the paranormal and on consciousness. And so many of these other people, academics in our organization. And so they hooked me up with all of these PhDs, and I would talk with all of them. So I would ask them these questions, do you believe that consciousness is fundamental and not our physical reality? They all said, yes, of course it is, Then I would ask them, well, do you believe that all the paranormal is interrelated? It's actually one phenomenon. Yes, of course it is. Okay. I said, well, show me the book. I want to read about it, because I was still in the middle of my personal experiences. I was still having all this crazy stuff, So just like you as an experiencer, this. Why? Because you're having these experiences. And like in my case, I was having almost everything that I previously described. So I know that they're all interrelated. But me being, from an academic background, I wanted to research on it and study it academically. And they all said, no one has written a book about that. Well, at least an academic article. Show me the academic article that someone mentioned these two things together. No, it doesn't exist. How can it be? Now, what most of them write about is that consciousness is fundamental, and then they do their parapsychology experiments, and that's it. Okay. And then you have the people that were NDE folks. That's all. NDE. The UFO folks. UFOs. The people that study out of body experiences and astral travel experience. OBE. The ghost hunters and the people that study ghosts and spirits. It's like ghosts and spirits. Yeah. No one was putting everything together. Okay.
Exactly.
And let me tell you a little side story. Dr. Kenneth Ring was one of the leading pioneers of NDE research. He first started researching NDEs in 1976. This is the year after Raymond Moody published his book, Life After Life. And Raymond Moody in 75 coined the term NDE. Okay. So Kenneth Ring was one of the founders of the International Association of Near-Death Studies. He's one of the major players in that. So he and I were friends, and he knew that I wanted to interview several of the major pioneers, Raymond Moody, Dr. Jeffrey Long, and Dr. Bruce Grayson. And he said, Ray, when you go interview them, don't mention UFOs. Don't mention UFOs, because UFOs to them is totally discredited. Okay. Those are all a bunch of nuts. There's no science. There's no academia in the UFO field. Okay. And these are, academics and researchers and medical doctors, things of that sort. So what I did is I did a trick on all of them. We were doing a major documentary, an hour and a half long documentary, which should be released in about 6 months. So I started asking them questions from our book, Beyond UFOs. I had the book right in front of me, but I didn't show them the cover. So I was reading all these questions. And after a half hour, I said, the questions I've been asking you came from this book. And then I would turn the page. Beyond UFOs, the science of consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence. All three, including Gary Schwartz, who was a tenured professor of psychology at Harvard University in Yale. Okay. And has been doing all these studies on mediumship. Okay. And so all of them, their jaws dropped. Like they had no idea, because ufology to them is people like Richard Dolan and, those folks, there's zero legitimacy to that work, And so at the end of it all of them said to me, Ray, can I join you guys? Okay. That's why we have so many people that are major NDE researchers, because they suspected the connection, but they didn't have the information behind it, especially about UFOs. Okay. We have a professor who is a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. We have a paper in our book, A Greater Reality, where he compared DMT and psilocybin, which is the ayahuasca and magic mushrooms. He compared it to the near-death experience. The similarities between both types of experiences. And he said that I suspect this is all part of one phenomenon. So this is a professor at the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. So what happened is back in 2013, with the help of Edgar Mitchell, John Klimo, Rudy Shields, and several of our academics, I began investigating with all of these academics that are out there, about this topic. And they all said, yes, I agree, but nothing has been written, nothing has been documented. And so in our book, Beyond UFOs, we asked a lot of questions that are consciousness-based questions. For example, it was 80% of these people received messages from non-human intelligence about the afterlife, about spirituality, okay? Either directly from the beings or in some other indirect way. And it's like the overwhelming majority of these people are now love and light. People had abduction experiences. They're all Mr. and Mrs. Love and Light, like Kathleen Martin and Whitley Strieber, So, and people that were actually brought to, the afterlife. It was like almost 40% of these people were brought and shown the afterlife. And this is independent of an NDE, okay? And so once you put all of this together, then I said, okay, I need to be able to collect articles about all of the different, what we call contact modalities, which is commonly called the paranormal, okay? But it also includes all aspects of ESP, okay? Of non-local consciousness, how it works, that sort of thing. And then the topic of consciousness, the primacy of consciousness. So I got agreement from over 45 PhD academics and medical doctors to write an article for our book. And so the book has two major theses. Thesis number one is that consciousness is primary, okay? What that means is that our physical reality is not our true reality, okay? And that's a concept that's, as you know, Margie, came from, the Upanishads, ancient India. And then it was adopted in Taoism and Buddhism and Middle Eastern, traditions and philosophies. The whole Plato wrote the allegory of the cave, basically arguing that our physical reality is an illusion. Okay. So that's Plato, the foundation of Greek philosophy, and then the Roman philosophy later on. And so, and then in the book, I also quoted various Nobel Prize winners of quantum physics. It was like 4 of the early Nobel Prize winners in quantum physics. And what were their quotes? Consciousness is primary and not our physical reality. So here you are, like the geniuses of their times, understood this concept. Why? Because the physics that they were developing demonstrated that our reality is not real. There is something more complex behind it. But yet, if you're a major experiencer and you've had an out-of-body experience, you know that, hey, what's going on here? My physical body is down here, but my consciousness, okay, my soul, my spirit, whatever you might want to call it, is up here looking down. When you have a near-death experience, you're fully conscious, like you and I are having a conversation now, okay? And all of a sudden, this energy being that you identify as God is giving you a life review, and it's showing you all of the good things you've done in your life and all the bad things, okay? Not to judge you, because you are the judge, okay? And also from a near-death experience, all of these major researchers and NDEs said the major lesson that individuals are told before they return back is it's not important how much money you have. It's not important what religion you are. It's not important how famous you are. What's the most important lesson that you need to learn here on earth is to learn how to love each other. And yet they're told that that's the most difficult lesson. Okay, the most difficult lesson. But
it is.
Yes. But guess what? We asked surveys in the UFOs, Beyond UFOs research survey, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell free research study. Okay, we asked a lot of questions about spirituality and love. And these people, was like 85% of these people said that love is like the most important concept to them now, treating other people with love and respect. Now, these are people that saw a damn UFO or a little gray or some other type of being, squirm around in their living room, and now they're love and light. What went on in that process, Margie, okay? What I'm arguing is that all of these experiences, all of what we call the commonalities, all of these are awakening mechanisms They function very, very differently. But at the end, you're reaching the same conclusion. You're questioning who you are in this physical reality, and you're questioning the afterlife. And you're getting spirituality. You're becoming a spiritual person, not a religious person, okay? We asked 70 questions how people changed. How were you before? And how are you now afterwards? It was like 85% of these people are now deeply spiritual. How did you get there? People that fear death, it was like 15% fear death. The other 85%, I don't fear death, you know? How did these people get to that point? But you ask the same thing, Margie, you know, because you've talked to thousands of people, okay? You ask OBE experiencers. You ask astral travel experiencers, okay? That same question, they'll say the same thing, okay? Deeply spiritual people, okay? Obviously, in some of these experiences, there are negative experiences associated with it, okay? But overall, okay, the picture is that these people dramatically change, okay? Night and day, it's a totally different person. Those 70 questions that we asked in the UFO research study, I borrowed them from Dr. Kenneth Ring's book titled The Omega Project. That was a statistical research study of 85 people that had near-death experiences with 85 people that had abduction experiences. And those 70 questions was, how were you before and how are you now? And so we asked those same exact questions. And guess what? We came with the same exact data, okay? These people changed it exactly the same way. And now it wasn't 85 people that had abduction experiences. Now it was 4,300 people. But what I would like to do with this new organization is to do this massive research study, similar to what we did with the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation. But this time, not just UFO contact experiencers, but to have experiencers of all of the contact modalities. You know, people that have had out-of-body experiences, astral travel experiences, near-death experiences, people that have had ayahuasca or magic mushrooms, you know, for 20 years, you know, and get these people to do interviews, all of them, and then compare them to see how similar they are. And what I suspect, and what all of the academics and organizations suspect, is that all of this phenomenon is all interrelated. And what's happening is the mind of God is using all of these different mechanisms to change individuals one at a time, but it's doing it at a limited basis, you know, because once you've had an NDE, you're totally changed. Once you've had an OBE, you're totally changed. Once all of a sudden you're able to have your abilities of going to a different location and seeing things and hearing things and even smelling, you know, while you're in an out-of-body stage, you're never the same afterwards, you know. So that's what I think it's doing. It's a mechanism. It's a tool to transform individuals. And I think the reason why it's happening now, because I always ask, this is how I started my book, The Mind of God. I said, when did NDEs really begin to circulate on a worldwide basis? It was Raymond Moody's book in 1975, Life After Life. OBE, when did that really begin to circulate on a worldwide basis? That was with Robert Monroe's first book, Higher Journeys. What year was that? 1972. Okay. The UFO contact phenomenon and the whole topic of beings from other planets, other galaxies, other dimensions, you know, when did that really begin to circulate on a worldwide basis? I would argue was when Star Trek got syndicated. All of a sudden, people in France and China, Russia, you know, India, no matter Latin America, where you lived, were watching Star Trek in their native language. When was it syndicated? 1970. Okay. So now everybody knows what UFOs are. Everybody knows what aliens are. Okay. Everybody knows what near-death experiences are. Out-of-body experiences, not so much, but still a large percentage of these people know what that is. Okay. And so why did these experiences begin in 1970 to 1975 within a 5-year period? Okay. Why? This is before the internet. Now with the internet, you'll say something and it spreads all around the world with the internet. This is before the internet, where you needed a book or a publication or a TV, you know, that type of thing. Okay. So what I argue is that we have reached the point of self-destruction, self-extinction. Okay. Why? Because look at the nuclear proliferation. Putin every week is threatening to blow up an atom bomb in Ukraine. If he throws an atom bomb, the U.S. and all the other Western allies are going to reciprocate. Easily, you could have explosion of nuclear weapons all over the place. And that will be the destruction of humanity, okay? And all life, basically. And then there's the whole thing of the ecology, the environment, okay? People don't understand, in 100 years, there's going to be billions of people that are going to be removed from the waterfronts of the oceans. Why? Because the rising cap of all the glaciers melting, the polar ice caps, the Antarctic ice caps. The other day, they had this big, huge chunk of Antarctica that broke off. It was gigantic. It was bigger than the state of Connecticut, okay? And so we know it's happening. All the leading scientists, are all talking about it. The issue is when. Some say 50 years, New York City might be underwater. Some people say 100 years. But not only add New York City, add Boston, add Miami, okay, West Palm Beach, Louisiana, New Orleans. In India, it's like half of India is going to be underwater. Bangladesh is basically underwater now. Imagine in 50 years. Bangladesh has almost 1 billion people, okay? China, look at all the major cities right on the seacoast, okay? So what? Not only the people moving inland, but also the wars that this is going to start. Imagine all of a sudden in China, people are leaving China and going to Pakistan on Nepal, because that's higher ground. We're talking billions of people, all at once. In all these other countries all around the world, people are leaving, the southwest part and invading Mexico because it's higher ground. I mean, it's going to be massive changes, and that will result in wars. Okay, and so we're ripe for ecological destruction and nuclear destruction. And so I wrote that in my book, and I said, what it is that there is an intelligence out there, which I call the mind of God. Okay, I would say 3/4 of the people, the academics that are in our organization, view it the same way as I do. They just don't write about it because they're still academics or medical doctors. They don't want to lose their reputations, and I don't care,
Exactly.
And so what I want everyone to do is send me an email, and I'll send you roughly half of Beyond UFOs for free, at least the academic statistical research analysis. I'll send you my book, The Mind of God, for free. It's 200 pages. And then I'll send you selected chapters from A Greater Reality. It's over 1,600 pages, and people are just not going to read. So, yeah, that's the book right there. It's titled A Greater Reality, The New Paradigm of Nonlocal Consciousness, the Paranormal, and the Contact Modalities. And the 5 co-editors are myself, Dr. Rudy Shield, the professor of astrophysics from Harvard, John Klimo, a retired professor of psychology for over 45 years, Dr. Michael Grosso, graduate PhD from Columbia University, taught philosophy for over 40 years, and Dr. Jeffrey Long, a medical oncologist, and he's one of the leading researchers of near-death experiences. And go to our website. It's titled agreaterreality.com.
And we've got that up on the ticker right now.
Yep. So go see it, and you will see all these academics and medical doctors and researchers that have written articles for our book. And again, just right there's the email, info at agreaterreality.com. Info at agreaterreality.com, and I'll send you all of this information. Now, the mind of God is my thesis, my hypothesis as to the nature of our reality. And just to repeat again, there's 2 major theses here, but I'll add a third. The first thesis is that consciousness is primary and not our physical material reality. That means that what you're seeing all around you is an illusion, okay? Because once you go out of your body, or once you do astral travel, or once you have a near-death experience and you go to, these higher realms, you understand that our physical reality is much more complex than what you initially thought it is, okay? Second is that all of the contact modalities need to be studied as one unified phenomenon instead of putting them in little stovepipes as separate and distinct phenomena. No, They're not. And my book has 12 different components or categories that all of the contact modalities share, okay? The most important as I alluded to it earlier, is that all of these paranormal experiences involves a manipulation of space-time. Okay. In terms of the UFO phenomenon, Jacques Vallée, for over 45 years, has been talking about the manipulation of space-time with UFOs and UFO contact experiences. And also, Alan Hynek, toward the last 2 years of his life, he began to explore these concepts. So people in ufology don't talk about Alan Hynek in the last 2 years. They don't talk about Jacques Vallée's work. Okay, why? Because it crashes, it conflicts with materialist ufology. Okay. Mm-hmm. And why even though we wrote the world's only comprehensive statistical research study of UFO contact experiences, why I haven't been invited to any of these UFO conferences, except maybe the Arkansas UFO conference.
Because you're invited to XCon in October. Beautiful. So put it on your calendar, right?
Okay, fantastic.
We're going to get you there one way or another.
But what it is, Margie, as you know, it crashes with the views of materialism. That everything in our reality.
Let me ask you something. Do you think that this could also have something to do with marketing TV shows and marketing books and selling things? Because if you have a message of something that's bad, that seems to get more attention. Something's negative than if something's positive.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, as you know, negativity sells. And some of these folks that we're talking about, they appear on every Ancient Aliens show. They're guest speakers on Ancient Aliens, and they're held as the gurus of ufology. But yet, in my opinion, some of these folks are totally clueless. Totally clueless. We were criticized as woo-woo science. Why? Because we talked about consciousness. We had in our book, the science of consciousness and contact with non-human intelligence. But yet we had the scientists in our group. Look at in our greater reality. Look at the writers there. We're talking PhD biochemists. We're talking about 2 PhD astrophysicists. Okay, we're talking about 3 professors in medical schools. So who in the hell is the real scientist and who is just a wannabe historian? So there's a great difference there. And what it is, it's a battle over the nature of our reality. Okay. And so far, materialism is winning. And that's why we're calling what we're doing a new paradigm, a new way of viewing our reality, which is the time is not right for it. I'm doing this way before, ahead of its time. But, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people talking about the same concepts. But with time, we are going to be the main paradigm.
I believe so, because nobody has done anything like this research study. Nobody has written so many words as you, and you can't read any part of your books without realizing that you're definitely onto something. You're onto the truth, and there are a lot of us in ufology and in other paranormal fields who have wanted to come out and say these things, and we've seen it with ourselves, and we've seen it with our witnesses to these events, and they're afraid to talk about it. They're just afraid to talk about it. And I'm so glad that you have come out, Ray, that you did it. You were the first, and everyone that you work with. And I really appreciate that. And I know that everyone else does as well. So thank you so much for being on the program with me this evening. And we will talk about the conference a little bit later. This is just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I just want to let folks know you can get roughly half of what I've written for free. Okay. Just send me an email. I'll give it to you, because I'm not doing this for money. So some people in ufology, that's what they live off. They live off selling their books and going to these conferences. I don't give 2 hoots about, going to these conferences and making money off of them. What I care about.
You're getting the information out.
The information out. And so the email, once again, is info, INFO, at agreaterreality.com.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ray. This is Margie Kay, and I'll see everybody here again next week.